Today we're joined by NASA polar scientist Rachel Tilling to talk a little bit more about how 2022 shaped up from a global perspective. Good morning, Rachel. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So NASA and NOAA have just released the global temperature data for 2022. What is it telling us about the global data this year?
Yeah, as you said, the numbers are just out, and 2022 ranked, according to the NASA data, as the 5th hottest year on record. And that was joint with 2015 as the 5th hottest year. And we would expect to see some variations in temperature year to year, some slightly warmer years, some slightly cooler years. But what's really important is the long-term trend in temperature, and long-term global temperatures are increasing. In fact, the 9 most recent years have been the hottest years in record, and we expect that trend to keep continuing upwards and global temperatures to keep increasing.
We know 2022 is part of a much larger climate record. How do the changes that you're observing impact people and society, not just here in the United States, but across the globe?
Yeah, and 2022 was another year of extremes. It feels like each year now we're seeing more of these extreme weather events across the globe. We're getting these atmospheric rivers that are causing extreme flooding in California right now. There was extreme flooding in Pakistan that occurred later last year. Wildfires in Colorado and California are spreading well into the winter when they didn't before. And that's just a few of the things that we're seeing, not just in the US, but across the globe.
So we know both NASA and NOAA launched new satellites to help study Earth this year. How do NOAA and NASA satellites help us better understand climate, which of course is a global, temperature over long periods of time, and maybe day-to-day weather too?
Satellites give us this really awesome view of Earth that we might not otherwise get, because especially in hard to reach places like the Arctic, for example, which is what I study day to day, it's very hard to get there to take these measurements on the ground, and also to cover the whole globe with one satellite gives you data that you just wouldn't be able to get if you were taking these measurements. NASA have a fleet of satellites along with our partners that measure things like deforestation, global temperature, melting ice caps in the polar regions, and various other things as well. And my favorite, the fact that we've got satellite records now going back about 40 years that tell us that Arctic sea ice is declining in the summer, and we've actually seen about half of the summer sea ice decrease in the Arctic over the last 40 years. And although that as a statistic is devastating, the fact that it's something we can measure and the science behind those observations is I think really cool, and something that I love working on.
I have one more question for you. So the UN just released data last week saying that the ozone layer is starting to shrink. Do we know if that has any impact on our yearly global temperatures, whether or not it's moving forward or maybe in 2022?
The science behind that is still very much ongoing. We know that there are going to be changes in the ozone layer, for example. We know that Antarctica, which again is somewhere that I study, has one of the thinnest parts of the ozone layer globally, and is therefore very susceptible to these changes that we're seeing. But this is still very new science, and long term we need to look at the data, we need to look at the temperature records and the data that the satellites are giving us to form a larger picture and really get an idea of how that might look going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder to people that climate data, is every 30 years. So just because something was released now, we have to watch how that will grow and change over the next few years. Thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you.
You're watching Wake Up Charlotte Weekend. We'll be right back.